Hey guys, it's Bella. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having the best day ever. If you're new, welcome. Please make sure to subscribe. We talk about true crime cases on this channel, usually on Mondays. This series is called Mystery Mondays. I've been doing Mystery Mondays for like 7 years now, but historically I've not been the best at sticking to Mondays. I'll just like have a video done and I'm super excited, so I'll just post it on a random Thursday. But I'm trying to just start sticking to Mondays again. We've got this. Also, I'm sounding a little bit, deep today because I'm sick again. I don't know what is in the water in London, but this is like the 6th or 7th time I've been sick this year. I feel like a child from the 1800s that has just like traveled through time and I just cannot keep up with all the new germs or something. Like my body is just not handling London well right now. My mind loves London. My body is like, get out of here. Everyone in the comments is telling you to get out of here. Listen to them. Because no one can understand why I've moved to London, and nor can my body, apparently, because I just keep getting sick. I swear before I moved here I wasn't sick for like 2 years. I mean, probably because of like all the COVID precautions helped with that, but I've never been this sick so many times, so frequently in my life. Anyway, today we are going to be talking about another unsolved case, and this one's from New Jersey. It's a little bit satanic, a little bit cultish, and there are a bunch of crazy theories on this one which we'll talk about, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments below because I do have my own theory about this case, but I swear every time I post a video and then I read all of your comments, I'm just like in awe. It's honestly my favorite part of every video is just like reading the comments after, because I read them and I'm just like, how did I not think of that? And then everything changes for me and I start like, my thoughts about the case just start spiraling. So today we're going to be talking about the case of Jeannette Depalma. Jeannette was born on the 3rd of August in 1956 in Jersey City. Her parents, Salvatore and Florence, were Italian, and so Jeannette was born into this big Italian Catholic family. She was the 6th of 8 children and had 4 sisters and 3 brothers. They all lived in Roselle, which is about 30 minutes from Jersey City, until the mid-1960s when the family moved another 30 minutes away to Springfield. Here, her father Salvatore was the owner and operator of D&D Salvage in Newark, and her mother Florence took care of the house and the children. The family lived at 4 Clearview Drive, which was this new, big, beautiful house, and it was actually part of a group of these new large houses that were being built in the area. And in order to service all of these new houses, they actually had to build a whole new road called Mountain View Road, which the locals were super pissed off about. There was like an influx at this time of people moving to Springfield from Manhattan and Long Island, and the locals just felt like Springfield was losing its charm. They were annoyed that they had to pay for all of these new services that they wouldn't even get to use, and so the locals just really were not a fan of all of these new families that were moving into the area, including the Depalmas. Neighbors described the Depalma family as being pretty recluse. They didn't really leave their house very much, didn't talk to any of their neighbors, and some residents just thought they were like a strange bunch of people. They were also part of the Assemblies of God Evangelical Church, which was like a born-again Christian church, because at the time there was like this really big movement called the Jesus movement, and basically just like a lot of people were turning to evangelical faith in this period. Jeannette in particular was very religious. Her parents said she tried to, quote, lead others to Jesus, and also that she was involved in community work with the church that aided drug addicts, and she was also planning on attending a Bible college. Other people that knew her described her as being sweet, honest, and funny, and despite her commitment to religion, she had a wild streak and she knew how to have fun. She was also described as tough. She knew how to stand up for herself and she wouldn't back down from confrontation, and this also extended to others as well. Like she was always there to lend a hand to somebody if they needed it. And I guess it was good that she had tough skin because there were a lot of rumors about her and her family. Her dad, Salvatore, who often went by Sal, and I guess this isn't really a rumor, but it was, it's a small town, it was talked about a lot, and there were more rumors that were created by this, but he had the police called on him multiple times for the way that he treated his wife Florence. And when the police would come to the house responding to these calls, Florence would answer and she would kind of say, say everything's good, no need to worry, and she would send the police away. There was also a rumor that Sal was a mafia boss and that he was part of the Costa Nostra, which is basically like the Sicilian mafia. Jeannette attended Union Catholic Regional High School before transferring to John Dayton Regional High School, and there were rumors about her at her high schools as well. Luckily, she did have a good group of friends and she had her sisters who were all there for her, but it seems like she just had a bit of a rough go at it at school. She didn't really fit in. There were people who were just mean to her. There was this one rumor that she was promiscuous, which is such a lame rumor, like who cares? But this was the 70s, it was a Christian school. Girls practically can't even look at boys without somebody saying something. Her family did deny these rumors that she was promiscuous, but she was confirmed to have been dating a boy named John. So on Monday, the 7th of August in 1972, Jeannette was 16 years old at the time, and she told her mum, hey, I'm gonna go hitchhike and then catch a train to my cousin's house in Berkeley Heights, which is like 8 miles or 13-ish kilometers away from their house. And she left their house at 1:20 p.m, which, can I just add, is so crazy to me that she said to her mum, hey, I'm gonna go hitchhike to my cousin's house. And her mum was like, okay, great, like sounds good, sweetie, see you later. I get that it was a different time, but the 70s had the highest crime rate ever recorded in American history. There's no way I'm hitchhiking or letting my child hitchhike anywhere. I mean, I feel like, you know, people at the time were more just like blissfully unaware, or maybe it was just like the small town mindset. But it's just like whenever I look into these cases, a lot of them start the same way, of people thinking they live in a safe place, they can leave their windows unlocked, they can go hitchhiking. But, you know, I've said this before and I'll say it again, no place in this world should ever truly be considered a safe place, which is sad to think about, but it is unfortunately true. And that morning was the last time that Florence would ever see her daughter again. Jeannette never made it to her cousin's house, and later that night, when she didn't return home by 10 p.m, her parents went to the police to report her missing. But the police said, and I'm sure you can take a wild guess what I'm gonna say the police said, because I feel like this happens every time in every single case like this. When someone tries to report someone missing, the police just say, oh, they probably just ran away. You can't report them missing until it's been 24 hours, which has always baffled me, because the first 24 hours is the most crucial in any case ever. And not to mention, Jeannette was the only missing persons case in this town at the time. So like, surely just have a little bit of a look into it. There was just no urgency whatsoever. The Depalma family actually had to take matters into their own hands and start the search themselves. But after 6 weeks, there was still no trace of Jeannette whatsoever. There were no significant leads, and they were still no closer to finding Jeannette. Eventually, on the 19th of September, a woman just went out and did grocery shopping. She was just having a regular day, right? Went out grocery shopping at home, unpacking her groceries, and then all of a sudden her dog brings in a decomposing arm from the nearby woodlands. She obviously calls the police right away, and the police come out to see the arm, retrieve the arm, and one of the officers immediately connects this to Jeanette's disappearance and wonders if this could be Jeanette's arm, and they're also wondering where the rest of the body is. A search party was quickly formed, and within 4 hours they were searching the area surrounding where the arm was found, which was in Hootley Quarry, and this was surrounded by woods which stretched all the way to Mountain View Road. And it wasn't long before they found the decomposing body of Jeannette Depalma. She was at the peak of a large rock formation known as the Devil's Teeth. There are different accounts of how her body was found, but the general consensus was that she was found lying face down with a patterned formation of rocks and logs surrounding her body. There were also some reports that makeshift wooden crosses were surrounding her body, which ignited the idea that there may have been some involvement from a group of satanic worshippers or witches, especially because this was a time when people were super paranoid about Satanism and witchcraft and just the occult in general. There was just like a whole lot of paranoia and hysteria about the occult and about Satanism and about witches and all of that kind of stuff. And so a lot of murders at the time, people were just very quick to be like, this has something to do with the occult, this has something to do with Satanism. If there was like just one little weird thing or one little weird rumor about the murders, then it's got to do with the occult. Also, when Jeanette's body was found, her flip-flops were found right next to her body, which is particularly strange because if you look at the place where Jeanette's body was found, climbing to that spot in flip-flops would be quite a task. And if she was brought up there unwillingly, it would have been an effort and a half to carry an unconscious body up there. I mean, even to bring her body down, it was a huge effort. They had to bring in like a fire truck so that they could use the ladder to get her body down from there. The body was also quite far along in the decomposition process, and like animals and insects and bugs had been eating away at the flesh on the body. So it was quite hard to identify it. They actually had to use dental records to confirm that the body did belong to Jeannette Depalma. There was also no autopsy because of how badly decomposed the body was, but they did do an x-ray which showed no bullet holes, no fractures, no signs of traumatic injury at all. So it was actually impossible to determine an exact cause of death. There was speculation that she was strangled to death, and the coroner actually ruled the cause of death as strangulation, but he listed the death as suspicious rather than as a homicide. As the investigation continued, samples of Jeanette's clothing, including her slacks, her blouse, and her underwear, as well as samples of her hair from her body and also from her bedroom at the Depalma household, as well as soil from the crime scene, was sent off to the FBI for analysis. They got the results back on the 3rd of January in 1973, and it showed that there was no foreign hairs found on her, no blood, no semen, no drugs, no poison. They did find stains on her bra, slacks, blouse, and underwear, which were too decomposed for conclusive blood or semen examinations. The only body hairs that were found inside her underwear as well were her own. So this kind of indicated that sexual assault having occurred was unlikely. And honestly, that is all of the like physical evidence in this case. Like there was literally no physical evidence in this case. There were a few like tip-offs that were called in, which police looked into, which led them to a few potential suspects. One tip-off led them to look into a local man named Red Kira, who lived in the woods near where Jeanette's body was found. And allegedly he fled after the body was found, but police investigated him and they ruled him out as a suspect. There were also rumors of 3 other different suspects, a local watchman, a man who drove a red Ford, and also a boy that Jeanette previously dated, but there was no evidence to indicate that any of these men were involved. And would you believe that is all of the information on this case? There is literally no evidence, no suspects, no leads, there's just nothing. So it's not hard to understand why this case is still unsolved after all of this time. But this happened in a small town, which you know what that means. There was gossiping, there was rumors, and so theories on this case really ran wild. One of the biggest theories in this case is that this had something to do with the occult, that it was to do with Satanism or witchcraft or ritualistic sacrifice or something like that. And as I mentioned, this was a time of not only satanic panic but also the Jesus movement, where a lot of people were turning to faith and turning to the evangelical church, and these two things combined just made this theory spiral. An article that was published by the newspaper called the Daily Journal on the 29th of September in 1972 said that the people who first discovered Jeanette's body, the officers that first discovered Jeanette's body, said that when they found her body, quote, pieces of wood were crossed on the ground over her head. More wood framed the body like a coffin. They also claimed in this news report that, quote, a number of sacrifices involving dead animals were reported around the Watchung Reservation, which was less than 2 miles or 3 kilometers from where Jeanette's body was found. Another newspaper at the time reported that, quote, at the quarry where the body was discovered, police found apparent signs of a sacrificial ceremony, possibly involving devil worship or witchcraft. And that same newspaper also said that the police allegedly took a witch to the scene of the body, and the Depalma's pastor said, quote, I never did hear if the witch found anything, but I know she was there at the scene. Which I feel like just goes to show what the mindset was like at the time in regards to the occult, because, imagine the police today bringing a witch to a murder investigation to aid them with the investigation. I just really don't feel like that's something that would happen today. I feel like people today are not as afraid of witchcraft and the occult and that sort of thing. There's not as much hysteria around it, but at the time, like I said, there was a lot of hysteria. and there were a lot of cases that were taking place at this time that were just fueling this as well. The John List murders also took place the year before Jeanette's murder in 1971 in nearby Westfield, and he shot his wife, his mother, and his children in the head one by one. He then placed each of the bodies on sleeping bags and arranged them in a line on the ballroom floor of his Victorian mansion, except for his mother, who he left in her apartment attic. And the bodies weren't discovered for nearly a month, and by the time they were discovered, John List had moved to Virginia, he had changed his name, and he wasn't arrested until 1989. And when he was arrested, he said that the reason that he did all of this is because he lost his job and he thought that he was sending them to God and saving them from the embarrassment of having to be on the public dole. And then there was also the Patrick Newell case in 1971 as well. He enlisted the help of two of his friends and requested that they bind his arms and his legs behind his back and throw him into a pond. The two teens who were involved were convicted of Patrick's death, but one of them said to the police that Patrick belonged to a Satan worshipping sect and that he wanted to die violently so that he could be put in charge of 40 leagues of demons. So yeah, there were a lot of cases at the time that were just kind of fueling the Satanism hysteria, the occult hysteria. There were a lot of cases that involved religion, and so a lot of people were blaming a lot of murders on the time on the occult. But I really just think it was just hysteria. It was newspaper sensationalism. I don't think this case had anything to do with the occult at all. Even Jeanette's nephew said that he believes any claims of Satanism could just be chalked up to media sensationalism. A retired Springfield police officer named Donald Schwartz also says that he, like in a more recent interview, says that he also doesn't believe the claims of Satanism or witchcraft, and he actually believes that drugs were involved, which brings us to our next theory. So he said, quote, "Somebody had to be with her because she had flip-flops and I had hiking boots on and I had trouble getting up that little hill up to where she was laying." He said that there had to have been someone with her because, quote, "with flip-flops, she would have had a hell of a time getting up that hill." He also said they were probably doing drugs and she OD'd. He claimed that police knew that some of the kids that Jeanette hung out with were known to police to be drug addicts, but there was no evidence of drugs in the medical examiner's report, and no one who knows Jeanette has ever validated any claims of drug use. Nobody that knew Jeanette has ever suggested that she was involved in drugs in any way, and it seems to be a very small few who are pushing this theory. There was also an interview with a guy named Edward Salazono, and he is a retired private investigator, and he also runs the Justice for Jeanette Depalma Facebook page, so he knows this case like inside and out. And he says that he does not believe that she overdosed. He doesn't believe that drugs are involved in that way. He believes that maybe she like smoked pot a little bit, but that it's totally unbelievable that she overdosed. But he does believe that drugs could be involved in some other way, that maybe she was just hanging out with the wrong crowd. Maybe she was hanging out with some kids who did drugs. He says, quote, "There was a really bad group of people here in town. There was some evil stuff going on here and there was a lot of people caught up in it, and LSD was being basically introduced for the first time." He then went on to say, "There was just a series of unfortunate events and she got mixed in with the wrong people and they killed her." According to the Springfield Police Department, the place atop the cliffs where Jeanette's body was found was also known as a local hangout spot for teenagers, so it's possible that some kids might climb up and do drugs there. Personally, I don't think drugs were involved. I don't think Jeanette was on drugs. I don't think she overdosed. I just don't think they were involved. I mean, potentially, like, the people that killed her could have been on drugs. It could have been some kids that were on drugs and accidentally killed her. It could have been those douchebags from her school that were bullying her and they killed her and then like set up those crosses and stuff around her body because they thought it was funny. Honestly, it just kind of seems like a stretch. I mean, from bullying to murder, from calling someone promiscuous as a rumor to like murdering them is like a big jump. Like, I just don't think that that's the case. Another theory that's been thrown around is that this was the work of a serial killer. In the 1970s, there was a man named Richard Cottingham, and he was an active serial killer who lived in New Jersey. He was also known as the New York Ripper, the Torso Killer, and the Times Square Killer, and he would torture, rape, and brutally kill his victims, who were predominantly young women and girls, and he dumped many of the bodies in heavily wooded areas, similar to the area that Jeanette's body was found in. He also claims to have killed between 85 and 100 young girls and women before he was caught. The author of the book Death on Devil's Teeth also claims that in 2021, Richard sent him a series of letters in which he alluded to the fact that he abducted and murdered Jeannette after picking her up while she was hitchhiking. And this author went and turned all of these letters over to the Union County Prosecutor's Office. But as of 2023, there haven't been any updates on this from law enforcement, but they did rule him out as a suspect like earlier because of the graphic nature in which he murdered his victims. It just didn't really line up with Jeanette's murder. And then the last theory is that there was actually some speculation that there was some sort of cover-up for a high-profile official who was involved in Jeanette's case, because mysteriously enough, Jeanette's case file went missing for a period of time. The Springfield police claimed that they lost the case file in flooding from Hurricane Floyd in 1999, but this turned out to be untrue, and a large chunk of the case file was actually released to the public in 2021. I'm not sure if, this case file was just magically found after all of that time, but some people think it was just the result of a cover-up. I mean, it is really sketchy because why did it just magically show up after all of this time? Was it ever actually missing, or were they just hiding it to try and cover up for somebody? They still haven't released the whole case file either. They've released like most of it, but there's still some they haven't released, and they say that they will eventually release all of these records so the full case file is available. But why is it taking them so long to release the whole thing? And the strangest part of this case file is that when it was released, right, there was photos from the crime scene that were released in the case file, and they show no crosses or anything of the sort around Jeanette's body, which basically rules out the whole occult theory. I don't know who is going around lying about finding these weird things around her body and like little crosses and like occult type stuff around her body, but it is a weird thing to lie about. Like, some people are so imaginative. And it was the police that found her body as well, right? So like, who from the police is going around saying this stuff, that these things were found around her body, trying to push this occult theory? And like, why is somebody from the police doing that? Especially when the crime scene photos showed that there was no signs of like witchcraft or Satanism or any type of ritual whatsoever. It is so odd. The case file also had a list of items that were found at the scene that belonged to Jeannette that had been like tipped out near Jeanette's body. And one of these items was a clear vial that was filled with an unknown substance. And Jeanette's mum said that Jeannette had a mild cold at the time of her disappearance, so it could have just been medicine for that. But some people believe that it might have been illicit drugs. Personally, I feel like if it was illicit drugs, like the police could have just tested it and found that out, but instead they say it was an unknown substance. I don't know if maybe they just didn't test it, because the whole investigation for this case like sucked. Like, the police did not do a good job looking into this case at all. But again, no drugs were listed in the medical examiner's report, so I don't know, maybe it could have been someone else's drugs, or maybe it wasn't drugs at all. This case file also said that Jeanette's purse was missing and that her little cross necklace that she also wore were missing, so it's possible that the killer took these as souvenirs. Something else that also came out from these case files is that there was actually a report that had been made from a driver named Robin, who said that she had picked up a hitchhiking girl that matched Jeanette's description on the night that she went missing. She said that she was wearing dungarees, a light colored top, and flip-flops, which is pretty much exactly what Jeanette was wearing when her body was found. Robin claims that she was driving from Kenilworth to Berkeley Heights between 10:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. on the 7th of August in 1972, when she saw a young girl on the corner of Morris and Springfield Avenues. Police also noted that Robin had told them that this took place at about 8:30 p.m, but all these years later, Robin is sure it was later because she was so surprised to see such a young girl hitchhiking so late at night. She claims that she pulled over and asked the girl where she was going, and the girl said she was going to Berkeley Avenue to meet some friends, and Robin told her, I can take you to my apartment. And the girl said, no worries, like that's only a block away from where I'm gonna meet my friends anyway. And when she pulled over and let the girl out of her car, she walked to the corner of Snyder Avenue and met with a group of friends that were already there. This potential sighting honestly throws the whole timeline into question, because it's understood that Jeannette never made it to her cousin's house, and she also left her family home at 1:20 p.m. So what was she still doing out so late? What had she been doing from 1:20 p.m. until this point? And like, she was meant to have a shift at her work that afternoon. She just like apparently blew it off. I don't know, like if this sighting is correct, it really leaves us with more questions than answers. And that is all of the theories about this case. Today, they are still no closer to finding Jeanette's body than they were back in 1972, and that can probably be attributed to what a shit investigation it was. From the claims of these weird little wooden pieces that were around Jeanette's body, to the missing case file, to just the lack of investigation, honestly. Edward Salazono took it upon himself to try and find justice for Jeannette through his Facebook page, and also by filing a lawsuit against the Union County Prosecutor's Office to try and get them to retest Jeanette's clothing for DNA, but this lawsuit was ultimately dismissed. Ed says that he spoke to a bunch of people in the town, and from doing so, it was clear that something fishy was going on. He said that it felt like people knew something, but they just didn't want to talk about it, or they were afraid to speak about it. But yeah, that's everything for this case. Personally, I actually don't believe any of the theories that are spoken about in this case. I think that she went and tried to hitchhike to her cousin's house, and some absolute creep saw her, and they saw that opportunity and took her and they murdered her, because it's no secret that hitchhiking is not safe. And especially for a young woman, you know, she was 16 years old, and there are a lot of creeps out there in this world. So I don't think it's far-fetched to say that one of them was driving past, saw her, and they took that opportunity. But I would love to hear what you guys think, what theories you believe, what you think happened, if maybe there's a theory I didn't talk about, because yeah, like I said, I read your comments and I'm always like, how did I not think about that? And then I question literally everything. So I really look forward to see your comments and what you think about this case. But yeah, that's everything for this case. That's all from me today, guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.